We ready? All right. Well, this morning we're talking about Joshua chapter 2. Joshua chapter 2 and the unlikely redemption that we witness in that chapter. Give people a second to get settled in. I should have just waited a couple more minutes. I was ready to go this morning. That's okay. Does anybody went to the chili thing last night? Everybody's recovered? More or less?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Yeah, that was fun. All right, Joshua chapter 2. The main idea that we see in this chapter, if I can turn my clicker thing on here, is that God redeems the most unlikely people to advance his redemptive plan, displaying that his grace is stronger than our past and his purpose is greater than our reputation. Let's just have a brief little quiz. Can anybody tell me who the notable character is who comes into the picture in Joshua chapter 2? Rahab, that's right. Rahab, and what's surprising about her, as we'll look at in just a little bit, is the fact that she finds her way into the genealogy of none other than Jesus himself. And there's some really powerful things that we can pull out of that fact. And we're going to do that here in just a little bit. But as we get into Joshua chapter 2, we'll read the first few verses here. We'll see that we're off to what we'll call a scandalous start. It doesn't start how you'd think it might. If you were God's people trying to conquer this land, the last person you probably think to get involved in the movement of that plan is a prostitute. But that's exactly what we have here. We see Rahab had a reputation, but God's reach to save her and redeem her extended far beyond the reputation that she had. Joshua chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. Would anybody like to read that for me this morning? Go ahead, Rick.
Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent this message to Rahab. Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. She said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, they left. I don't know which way they went. Go after them quickly. You may catch up with them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax, and she laid out on the roof, that she had laid out on the roof. So the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan, and as soon as the pursuers had gone out of the gate was shut.
All right, thank you, Rick. So we see God's mission starting to unfurl here. He's got the spies going into the city of Jericho, and he is having them scout out the land so that it might be conquered. And then you see a sudden interesting change. Where did they go first? They go to where? The prostitute's house. Now I've got some questions about the choice of why he ended up there, you know. So they go to the prostitute's house here. And we see that the fact that there was a well-known, secured, documented place of prostitution tells us some things about Jericho. There was immorality there. It was just part of how they functioned as a community, shall we say. Another thing that I think is interesting is when Rahab is questioned about these 2 individuals, what does she do?
Lies.
She lies. Straight up and down lies about these individuals. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they came from. I don't know where they went. Who are these guys? She lies. Would you expect God to utilize in a positive way a prostitute who lies up and down and all the things that come with that?
Sure.
Now, who do you expect God to use? The righteous, upstanding individual who's got their life together, who tells the truth, who does rightly? That's not what we see here, is it? In fact, like we said a moment ago, she's actually included in the genealogy of Jesus. She was part of ushering in the Savior of the world. I think that's pretty interesting. But Jericho was a bad place. It's a place full of idolatry. There's immorality. You had these men coming in trying to intimidate and bring these guys out, so presumably they could kill them. They didn't go and find refuge in a temple or a military base. Why would you go there? But they go to the prostitute's house of all places. Now there might be some out there, and there have been some, who try to soften the edges of Rahab and her occupation. But the language really leaves no ambiguity as to what she did for a living. She was a prostitute, and the text does not try to make her sound better than what she was. This is what she did. One of the things that's so comforting, I suppose, about that fact is God doesn't downplay how bad the individual was, but it really does highlight his goodness in how he redeems people. He redeems even the worst of sinners. He lets grace stand in contrast with what his grace is saving us from. Rahab did not deserve to be saved by all measures, all accounts. She was a wicked individual. Who does, right?
Right.
The point is you can look to somebody and say, well, that's about as bad as you get. Engaging in that for a livelihood and all of that. God's grace is even greater than our condemnations of individuals. 1 Corinthians 1:27 says God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. Human wisdom says, no, she ain't in. What can God do with that? She's wicked. Well, God says, check this out. You're not going to believe this. So, what might this tell us about the kind of people that God delights to use for his purposes?
God chooses ordinary people with, dare I say, ordinary lives in the thick of what they're involved in. I mean, look at Rahab. She has such a exemplary reputation around the community. Rent your love here. I don't know. It's something I learned in the Navy. Go rent your love. No, I'm not doing that. But it's just ordinary people. There's nothing special about any of us. We all have some kind of a quirk about us that's not what one would deem acceptable in the eyes of God.
Yeah, that's good. Terry?
The apostles.
Look at the apostles. Go on. What about them?
Ordinary men, fishermen,
Yeah.
tax collectors.
Yep. Yeah, some of the apostles are pretty rough around the edges, aren't they? Yeah. And yet God used them for great things. Rick, you got a hand up or just?
No.
Oh, okay. The rest of it was blocked by Eric's head, so. All right. Yeah, God delights to use the things that just don't make sense to us sometimes. The least likely, least expected people for his redemptive purposes. Any comments or questions there so far? All right. Well, this place of scandal, place of ill repute, becomes a kind of a sanctuary for these individuals. Her home was a symbol of sin, but it becomes a place of salvation. Again, you see this pattern of very unlikely things playing out here. This tells us that grace meets people where they are, not where they wish they could be. Can't imagine she really enjoyed her occupation or wanted that to be the way that her life turned out. Now, I suppose you have your oddball here and there who might be into that sort of a thing, but by and large, people don't like finding themselves in a situation like that. And yet God's grace still meets them in those very difficult and unwanted places. We see that God's mission often enters messy places to rescue messy people. Rahab was a messy individual, spiritually speaking. She had a lot of baggage, emotional and otherwise, that she no doubt carried, and yet God found her in the midst of her mess. One of the applications that we can think for ourselves is that we can't win the Jerichos around us, those strongholds where wickedness resides, from a distance. Evangelism, reaching those people, demands that we get close to them. We enter into those places of brokenness, but we don't participate in it. We want to be able to meet people where they are in their mess so that we can help them while not getting messy ourselves. And sometimes that's hard to do, but nonetheless, that's how we reach people. Okay.
It kind of makes me think how we misjudge people sometimes, because they didn't have any reason to believe that she really would protect them. You know, they trusted that she would, and somewhere inside of her, she knew that that was the right thing to do. And they trusted her. Someone who didn't necessarily be trusted.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. Like, on what basis could they trust her? Like, they go in and clearly they are enemies of the state there. On what basis would they have to trust Rahab with their lives? Just terrible.
She had to hear something about them to have an idea what was going on.
Yeah, she was aware of Israel going and conquering the surrounding nations. They had a reputation themselves.
She could see the handwriting on the wall.
Yeah, literally, the wall of Jericho. Yes, she could. But they didn't know that. They didn't know what she believed. Rahab, we see Rahab make a confession of sorts that reveals to us a surprising faith. You had this woman of ill repute in a land of idolatry and all the other things that come with it. We see she had a surprising faith, and that's what Terry just alluded to a moment ago. If we could get somebody to read verses 8 through 11 for us, we'll see that faith come into view. Joshua 2, 8 through 11.
Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof and said to the men, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the terror of you has fallen on us, and that all the inhabitants of the land have melted away before you. For I have heard from the Lord we have heard the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, the Sihon and the Og, whom you utterly destroyed. When we heard it, our hearts melted, and no courage remained in any man any longer because of you. For the Lord your God, He is the God of heaven above and on earth beneath.
Very good. Thank you, Jason.
It's hard to read with a hairball.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, they say that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And we see that the Israelites had a reputation that went before them, that they and the God that they served were the real deal, and they were a force to be reckoned with. And the fact that they had utterly just wiped out all of their enemies before them, they saw that they were next on the list. And they have to be thinking, uh-oh, what is this going to turn into for us? And Rahab made that connection clearly. And instead of just cowering and doubling down, she proceeded in a kind of faith. She had that fear of the Lord. She saw this is legit. I need to trust this God, not in whatever we've got going on here in Jericho. I know that the Lord has given you this land. That is a confession of faith. Rahab knew what Israel knew, that God was going before them. and that he would bring the victory. But unlike how Israel would proceed in some cases, she actually believed it. You might remember when they go to face the wall of Jericho, we'll talk about that in coming weeks. They heard God's plan, and what was their initial reaction?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Skepticism.
Yeah,
You serious? We're going to walk around this wall
it's gonna fall.
for 7 days, and we're going to shout. And this wall, this huge fortified construct, is just going to fall to the ground. Right. No, but Rahab actually believed that God would be victorious in this. Her words echo the theology of Exodus. She names God as Yahweh and declares his sovereignty. She knows that this is the God to believe in. Her confession comes before deliverance and not after. That's the thing to take note of too. She had drawn the conclusions before the events even came to pass. That's faith. She knew that God was going to. She didn't wait until after the victory to say, oh, okay, this is the right guy. She saw it before it even took place. True faith takes God at his word before the walls fall. In Hebrews 11:31, it says, by faith, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient. She trusted fully in what was going to happen and why. Any comments or questions there? Thoughts? Terry?
I said this before, read that, they said that the walls fell out,
Mm-hmm.
not in.
Yeah.
Like they pushed it in, God pushed it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's documented. Even archaeologically, that's been documented. You can see it in the ruins. It's very cool. Okay?
I was just gonna say, it gives us a good lesson on faith. When we think everything's falling apart, we have to have faith before it happens.
Yeah.
But while it's happening, the whole time.
Okay. And it might be falling apart, but just like here, it's like, is there a purpose behind it? And who's behind it? What's it going to avail in the end? Any other thoughts? Eric, you're awful quiet this morning.
You know,
I'll pick on you later, but just know it's coming. Why do you think Rahab's faith stood out among all of Jericho's people? They all knew what was coming, didn't they? It says that fear fell upon all of them. They knew that the writing was on the wall. So they're all the same in that respect. What made Rahab's faith stand out?
God chose her.
All right, God chose her. They all believed the same things. God is going to come in here. He's going to wipe out this city.
Wonder what she'd have done if they didn't come to her.
Yeah, I don't know.
Would she been like the rest of them?
Don't know. So what makes the difference? They all believe the same thing. This God is real. He's going to come and destroy the city. What makes her different from everybody else in the city?
Maybe because she lived in the pits, the worst part, and she had faith that there's gotta be something better.
Yeah, perhaps. I would venture to say what made her different is the fact that she actually did something. She acted by faith because of what she believed. When the opportunity came her way to serve these individuals from Israel, these men,
She trusted her.
she entrusted herself to God through serving these men. That's the difference. They believe the same things. They have the same information. The difference is she did something with it when that opportunity presented herself. What could those men who were seeking the Israelites, what could they have done that may have changed the outcome for them? What they want to do with them? We want to kill them. You guys are enemies. Well, could they have said, hey, we don't want to be utterly destroyed. We see that everybody else has been. What can we do to avoid that outcome? that would have been an act of faith. But they doubled down and said, you guys are still enemies. We don't care what the truth is. We're going to try and eradicate you.
They were just thinking like everybody else did.
Yeah. And Rahab was thinking differently. She was thinking faithfully, whereas the others were not. That's my 2 cents. Any other thoughts on that?
That's the thought of the moment right there.
That's the thought of the moment. Well said, Melody.
Not the dad.
Well said. Fear versus faith. The whole city feared God's power, but Rahab trusted in God's promise. The fear of God's wrath may shake the heart, but faith in his mercy saves it. And that's what we see. We see all these individuals, they were afraid of what was to come, but Rahab had faith in God's ability to be merciful. Everyone in Jericho had heard of God, as Yahweh, but only one woman responded in faith. Hearing about God is not the same as knowing him or seeking to know him. And faith begins when information turns into surrender. They could know everything there is to know about this Yahweh. They could know his law. They could know everything there is to know. But unless that information transforms them fundamentally and causes them to surrender their will to his, what good does it do them? Now, how is that similar with us in the Christian age? What would that look like in a 21st century Christian church context?
Not everyone saying to me, Lord, Lord, so enter the kingdom of heaven, and he that doeth the will of God is in heaven. That's it.
Right. Well, that's timeless, right? That transcends all centuries.
Right.
It's one thing to sit in a pew every Sunday and receive information about the Lord, but unless that information actually impacts our hearts and changes the way that we live, how we surrender to the Lord, we're just accumulating knowledge.
Right. Well, in that statement you made, David, I like what you're doing with a lot of things, including the Bible class on Wednesday, where we have the interaction, where we have means in which to see different methods we could use to reach those about us, with the other people in our congregation. Because, just as you said, sitting there getting all that knowledge, but you don't know how to profess it to those people about you, you're storing up knowledge for what purpose?
Yeah. There was a hand over here. Was it you, Terry? Go ahead.
Green says, faith standing alone is dead.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not putting it to use. What good is it doing you? And what good is it doing anybody else? Okay.
How strong is your faith when you are really willing to surrender? I think that's a test that we all come to grips with every now and then.
Yeah. Got to be able to surrender, and that really shows us what our faith is made of. Any other thoughts? Eric?
What do you fear more? The world, or do you fear God?
That's a great way to encapsulate what's going on here. Yeah, they may have all feared God in one sense, but Rahab really took it to heart because it changed the way that she proceeded in her life.
They feared, but she trusted.
Yes. Yes. That's right. That's right. We have a scarlet sign, which it becomes kind of this running symbol, or the scarlet thread of Scripture, as it's sometimes called in verses 12 through 21. It's a long one, so if somebody wants to read that, fine. Otherwise, I can read it. Eric, I'm going to pick on you today, brother. You're here. You're exposed. Have
I
at
just
12,
gave you an answer.
12 through 21. There's no escaping.
Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that as I have dealt kindly with you, you also will deal kindly with my father's house and give me a sure sign, that you will save alive my father, and my mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and deliver our lives from death. And the men said to her, Our life for yours, even to death. If you do not tell this business of ours, then when the Lord gives us the land, we will deal kindly and faithfully with you. And she let them down by a rope through the window, for her house was built into the city wall, so that she lived in the wall. And she said to them, Go into the hills, or the pursuers will encounter you, and hide there 3 days until the pursuers have returned. Then afterward you may go your way. The men said to her, We will be guiltless with respect to this oath of yours, that you have made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, you shall tie this scarlet cord in the window through which you let us down, and you shall gather into your house your father and your mother, your brothers, and all your father's household. And if anyone goes out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be on his own head, and we shall be guiltless. But if a hand is laid on anyone who is with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head. But if you tell this business of ours, then we shall be guiltless with respect to your oath that you have made us swear. And she said, According to your words, so be it. Then she sent them away, and they departed, and she tied the scarlet cord in the window.
All right, thank you, Eric.
Nice.
The scarlet cord becomes a symbol of her and her family's salvation to come, as representative of that. The spies made a promise to her that she and her family would be safe, as she ties this scarlet cord in the window as a symbol of they are to be spared and saved. The Hebrew word here suggests a brightly colored rope, something that you'd be able to see very clearly from a distance. I think of like that blaze orange that the hunters all wear this time of year, where it's very visible. You can't miss it. Terry, go ahead.
You know what our scarlet cord is, don't you? The blood of Christ.
That's it. You see that? It's the thing that covers us. It's the thing that allows us to be spared. That's exactly it. This cord became a sign of covenant mercy. There was a promise made, an oath made and kept between God's people and her family, making her home a place of deliverance. Now there's a connection that Terry's already alluded to, but we'll make mention of it again here. A connection between what we just read about in the scarlet cord and Christ. The scarlet cord mirrors the blood of first the Passover lamb in Exodus 12:13. How does it mirror that imagery? What did they do with the blood of the lamb at the Passover? Yeah, they took it, that spotless lamb, the scarlet blood is put over the doorpost, and what did the blood do for those who were inside that house? From what? The death of the firstborn. God's wrath. It was that scarlet image that said these people are safe. We see that in Exodus with the Passover lamb. We see that in Rahab's window. This scarlet cord covering over my house here shows that I am protected. The covenant between me and the God of Israel. We see it foreshadowing the blood of Christ, who is the true mark of our redemption. So from Egypt's doorpost to Rahab's window to Calvary's cross, that color of redemption has always been red. It's the thing that has symbolically covered God's people throughout all of the ages. Any thoughts or questions on that? Buster, what you got? I have to pick on you next. I picked on Eric enough. All right. Can we see the imagery used across various places in Scripture? Is that pretty clear? Good. Faith acts. True faith acts. Terry, as you said a little while ago, faith without works is what? It's dead. It's of no real use. It bear fruit. It doesn't help anybody, doesn't help you or anybody else. Real biblical faith always results in action. And Rahab's belief in the God of Israel and what he was going to do certainly propelled her into action. She was moved to obedience, and what did she do? She hung that cord in her window. She was ready to go. James 2:25 highlights her as proof that faith and works walk hand in hand. Let's look at that passage together real quick. James 2:25. James 2:25. Who's got it?
In the same way was not even Rahab the prostitute considered righteous for what she did when she gave lodging to the spies and sent them off in a different direction.
All right, thank you, Rick. Faith and works work hand in hand. Rahab the prostitute was justified or said to be righteous by the works that she did when she took these messengers and made sure that they were safe as they made their way out. It was something as simple as that. Just, hey, make sure these guys don't get killed. Send them out safely. It's the small things that we often don't even think about that actually matter a lot, even in our own stories. She risked a lot in doing this, though. It's no small thing for her. She risked her life for the sake of God's promise. Obedience was under threat. What would happen if she were to be busted in harboring these individuals?
She'd be killed.
She and probably her family would all be taken out. So there was a lot of risk involved to her. And sometimes faith takes risk on our parts. It can be risky to be obedient. What are some ways that risk can take place in our modern context to be obedient to God? What are we risking?
What was the question?
What, in 21st century America, Dover, Ohio, what are we risking to be obedient to God? And we'll include Massillon too, just to get you in New Philly. Strasburg. What's that risk to be faithful?
We don't have much of a risk.
Well, you may get ostracized or something, but I don't think there's much risk involved for us here.
No, wait a minute, it depends who you're talking to. You could be at risk.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are totally against Christianity. You're in especially in a big city, you go talking to a Muslim or see what
In our little cozy town of Dover, though, you might get a door slammed in your face. You know, they might tell you off, tell you you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But are we willing to risk even that? To be obedient? To share the Lord with somebody?
That's a pretty small thing.
Pretty small. Comparatively, it's not like we're putting our families' lives at risk in our little area of the world.
not like back in the first century.
Not like that.
After,
We'll see if we get back there, though. Time will tell.
or living in Africa.
Mm-hmm. That's a mess over there. It's a mess. If belief never costs us anything, we may not be believing the right things. And how do we know we actually believe them? Because true belief dictates behavior. What we believe is going to impact how we behave. And if our belief doesn't bear itself out in what we do, it kind of sheds some light on what we actually believe. What are we actually holding to be true? What's motivating our actions? What's the difference between believing in God and trusting him.
You can believe, but if you don't trust and do his will, the belief is nothing.
I think that goes back to the surrender issue.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people believe in God, but actually surrendering and trusting could be different things.
Yeah, it's one thing, you know, all of Jericho believed in God in the sense that they knew that he was real. They knew that he was legitimate. They knew that he was to be feared. They knew that he was to win. But trusting in him says, okay, in light of that information that I know, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to live my life? Make sense? Terry?
Let's say you're one of those people,
Mm-hmm.
and you believe like Rahab. What are you gonna do?
If you believe like Rahab,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I entirely
In
understand.
other words, you're in that city,
Mhm.
you believe in what Rahab believes in, the Lord. What are you gonna do at that point?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess
Are you
if
gonna
I,
stay in that city, or are you gonna get out of the city, or you understand what
Yeah.
I'm saying? She had protection.
Mhm.
They could believe. Where do they go?
Well, I suppose your options would be try and make friends with Rahab. Or,
If they don't know Rahab, they're in trouble.
well, yeah, apparently everybody in the city did. She had a reputation.
Yeah, wait a
Go,
minute.
but didn't know what she knew. I get it.
Yeah, they didn't know what she knew.
So, again, either make friends with Rahab or you'd have to appeal to the mercies of God and his people. And that takes risk too. You go out and say, hey, I know what's happening. Can we work out an arrangement? And go from there.
Well, if you go back to what you put right at the very beginning, you know, their reputation was idolatry and immorality.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they might not have cared. That was their reputation. That's what they did, that's what they believed in, and it wasn't that they didn't know,
Yeah.
but it was like,
Well, apparently they didn't care, at least not in the sense that they wanted to find some kind of mercy. They could have made the decision and say, hey, we know what's coming. Can we figure out a way to avoid this? But they didn't. Oh my. In Rahab, we see a redeemed legacy. She had a reputation, and that reputation would stick with her and her family. But we also see God's redemption being applied to it.
They could have left the city, the spies left the city, they could have done the same thing.
Yeah,
They had an out.
they didn't take it. They didn't take it. Rahab's story doesn't end at Jericho. She becomes the wife of Salmon, the mother of Boaz, remember her name? The great-grandmother of King David, and an ancestor of Jesus Christ. Her name, once synonymous with shame, becomes a lineage of grace. She didn't deserve what she got, but she received it as an act of God's grace. She is the only Gentile woman named in Hebrews 11 in that Hall of Faith. There are others, but she was the only one named in that list of the Hall of Fame of Faith. We see that God weaves redemption into history through broken threads. She was a broken woman. She had a lot of issues, a lot of problems that surrounded her life. And yet God mercifully chose to weave her into his story. Another thing that's pretty amazing is the fact that Rahab's past didn't disqualify her from being redeemed. It became the platform for displaying divine mercy. Who would have thought, oh Rahab, and all of her past, that God could have done anything with that? By human wisdom, human understanding, she's out. She's done for. But not in God's world. Go ahead.
God chose her. One reason I think is too, he knew her heart,
Mm-hmm.
that she could have changed.
Yeah. And she did. She's changed. That's the wonder of God's redemption. He can take the most broken, worse off of us and still do something wonderful with us. We see in Ruth chapter 4, verses 21 through 22, she's part of Boaz's lineage. And all that takes place in that story. That's for a different class. Matthew 1:5, we see Rahab listed in Christ's genealogy. From Ephesians 2:12 through 13, we see what's said there play out in Rahab's story, that once you were far off, but you've been brought near by the blood of Christ. She is a picture of that in real life. From Rahab's story, we can learn that no sinner is too stained for God's grace to be able to redeem them. And also that the gospel doesn't hide our past. It doesn't skim over it as though it doesn't happen, but it redeems our past for God's glory, and it highlights the goodness of God and His grace as it's been applied to us. Any last minute thoughts, questions, concerns, unjust criticism? All right. Rahab's life proves that God's grace can redeem anyone, can repurpose anything, and can rewrite any story. The label that she bore didn't define her, the Lord did. And if Rahab can stand in the genealogy of Christ, then no one stands beyond the reach of Christ. God's grace doesn't just save us from something, it saves us for something. What has God saved you for? That's the question I want to leave you with this morning. So, thank you for your participation this morning. Let's get ready to worship.